On a scorching Tuesday morning in 1887, Martha Henderson walked out of her White House in Silver Creek, Arizona, with her golden hair braided in the exact Apache style that had made the town mock Ayanna Redfeather for months. This single act of courage would transform an entire community's understanding of dignity and justice, proving that sometimes one person's stand against hatred can change the hearts of many. Ayanna Redfeather had endured 3 months of relentless cruelty since arriving in Silver Creek with nothing but a worn leather satchel and the traditional Apache clothes her grandmother had sewn. The townspeople ridiculed her intricate braids daily, threw stones at her while chanting cruel songs, refused her trade at the general store, and crossed streets to avoid her path. Children followed her through town, making war whoops and pulling imaginary arrows from invisible bows, while their parents watched with approval. But these braids were far more than mere hairstyle. They carried deep spiritual meaning, woven by her grandmother Nasha, with eagle feathers earned through acts of courage, ceremonial beads that told of her family's history, and ribbons representing the seasons her people had survived. Each morning, Ayanna would carefully rebraid her hair in the traditional pattern, refusing to abandon her heritage despite the daily torment it brought. The braids told stories of Apache women's strength across generations, of grandmothers who had fought alongside warriors, of mothers who had protected their children during forced marches, of daughters who had kept their culture alive in the face of extinction. When Nasha had first taught 7-year-old Ayanna to create these patterns, she had said, "When you compromise who you are to make others comfortable, you lose a piece of your soul that can never be recovered." Martha Henderson had been watching Ayanna's daily humiliation from her bedroom window, feeling a growing mixture of shame and secret admiration. As the banker's wife and the town's moral authority, Martha represented everything Silver Creek valued. She was white, wealthy, well-educated, and devoted to social conventions. Her blonde hair was always arranged in the latest Eastern fashion, her dresses ordered from San Francisco catalogs. But Martha's father had been a Harvard anthropology professor who taught her that civilization was measured not by skin color or clothing, but by character and how people treated one another. "The measure of a society," he had often said, "is not how it treats its most powerful members, but how it treats those who are different, vulnerable, or misunderstood." The breaking point came when Martha's 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, arrived home from school in tears, her blonde hair disheveled and her dress torn. Through her sobs, Sarah explained how older boys had cornered her behind the schoolhouse, pulling her hair and calling her names because she had been caught speaking kindly to the Apache girl. "They said I was an Injun lover, Mama," Sarah had cried. "They said anyone who talks to her must be a savage too. They pulled my hair so hard and said they were going to braid it like hers and make me look like a dirty squaw." That night, after comforting Sarah and putting her to bed, Martha sat in her parlor staring at her reflection in the darkened window. She thought about courage and cowardice, about standing up versus staying silent, about the kind of woman she wanted to be and the world she wanted her daughter to inherit. She realized that Silver Creek was failing the fundamental test of civilization her father had described. Martha made a decision that would require more courage than she had ever summoned. She would make a statement that would force the entire town to confront its cruelty and hypocrisy. She would stand with Ayanna Redfeather in the most visible, undeniable way possible. Martha spent the pre-dawn hours in her bedroom, carefully studying her reflection while practicing the intricate Apache braiding pattern she had observed Ayanna wearing day after day. Her fingers were clumsy at first, unused to such complex work, but she persisted until she had achieved something that closely resembled the traditional style. She wove simple cloth ribbons into the braids, making her intention unmistakably clear. When the church bell struck 9 o'clock, Martha Henderson stepped onto her wooden porch overlooking Silver Creek's main street. The morning crowd was in full swing, merchants opening shops, women heading to market, children playing in the dusty street, men gathering outside the bank for business discussions. The effect was immediate and electric. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Children ceased their games. Even horses seemed to sense the sudden tension. Martha Henderson, the town's paragon of proper society, was walking down Main Street with her blonde hair braided in the exact style that had made Ayanna Redfeather an object of ridicule and hatred. From her hiding place beside the trading post, Ayanna watched in stunned silence as the crowd's attention shifted to this unprecedented spectacle. She could see the confusion, anger, and disbelief on faces of people who had spent months making her life miserable because of the very hairstyle their most respected citizen now wore with obvious pride. Martha walked with deliberate slowness, her head held high, making eye contact with each person she passed. Her expression was calm but determined, showing no embarrassment or apology for her dramatic transformation. She moved through the crowd like a ship cutting through stormy waters, leaving a wake of whispered conversations and shocked stares. Gladys Murphy, the saloon owner's wife and Martha's longtime friend, rushed up first with horrified concern. "Martha, dear Lord, what have you done to your hair? You look like... I look like what, Gladys?" Martha's voice was steady and clear, designed to be heard by everyone nearby. "I look like a woman who has chosen to wear her hair in a style that is both beautiful and meaningful. Is there something wrong with that? But Martha, that's how the Apache girl wears her hair. People will think, they'll say..." Gladys's voice trailed off as she realized the implications. "They'll say what, Gladys? That I look like Ayanna Redfeather? Would that be such a terrible thing?" Martha's question hung in the air like a challenge, forcing everyone to confront the logic of their own prejudices. The crowd grew larger and more hostile. Mayor Johnson, a portly man with a carefully waxed mustache, pushed through with desperate authority. "Mrs. Henderson, surely there's some explanation for this unusual choice. Perhaps you were experimenting with a new style? Maybe this is some costume for a church pageant?" Martha turned to face the mayor directly, her braids catching the morning sunlight. "There's no costume, Mayor Johnson, no pageant, no experiment. I simply decided that if the people of this town are going to judge a woman by how she wears her hair, then perhaps it's time we all took a closer look at what that judgment says about us." The crowd's murmuring grew louder and more agitated. Rebecca Thompson, the school teacher, voiced her disapproval openly. "It's not natural, Martha. White women aren't meant to wear their hair like savages. It's not Christian." "And what makes you think it's not Christian, Rebecca?" Martha's response was sharp but controlled. "Did Jesus Christ specify particular hairstyles for different races? Did the apostles issue guidelines about braids being appropriate only for certain colors of skin?" Father Miguel had arrived at the crowd's edge, drawn by the commotion. Martha addressed him directly. "Father Miguel, you've lived among many different peoples in your years of ministry. In your opinion, does the way a woman braids her hair determine her worth in the eyes of God?" The elderly priest found himself caught between maintaining community peace and speaking theological truth. After careful consideration, he spoke. "The Lord looks upon the heart, not upon the outward appearance. The scripture tells us that man looks on the outside, but God looks on the inside. A person's worth cannot be determined by their clothing or their hair." Exactly," Martha said, seizing upon his words. "So if God doesn't judge people by their appearance, why should we?" The question sent ripples of discomfort through the crowd. People began realizing Martha wasn't just making a fashion statement. She was challenging the fundamental assumptions that had allowed them to treat Ayanna Redfeather as less than human. Dr. William Foster, the town's physician, stepped forward with a different approach. "Martha, surely you understand the practical concerns here. The Apache have been at war with settlers for decades. When you wear their symbols, their traditional styles, it sends a message that could be misinterpreted." Martha had anticipated this argument. "Dr. Foster, is Ayanna Redfeather at war with anyone in this town? Has she threatened anyone, harmed anyone, stolen anything, or shown any hostility whatsoever? Or are we punishing her for the actions of people she's never met, simply because she shares their heritage? But she's Apache, protested Tom Bradley, the blacksmith. She's one of them. You can't separate her from what her people have done. Can't I? Martha's voice grew stronger, more passionate. Then I suppose you'd be comfortable if visitors to our town judged you by the worst actions of any white person in history. Should Ayanna assume you're a murderer because some white men have committed murder? Should she expect you to cheat her because some white merchants have cheated Indians? The blacksmith's face reddened with anger and embarrassment. That's different. We're civilized. We're civilized. Martha's questions cut through the crowd's defensive anger. We don't judge people unfairly. We don't drive innocent people away from our community based on nothing but prejudice and fear. James Patterson, a young lawyer recently arrived from Denver, found his voice. Mrs. Henderson raises an important point. I've observed Miss Redfeather's conduct since arriving in town, and I've seen nothing but courtesy, dignity, and peaceful intentions. Meanwhile, I've witnessed behavior from some citizens that would be considered shameful in any civilized community. Mr. Patterson is correct, Martha said firmly. We've allowed ourselves to become a community that drives away peaceful people because of how they look, that teaches our children to throw stones at strangers, that prides itself on cruelty disguised as righteousness. Patterson added legal weight to Martha's moral arguments. According to territorial law, Native Americans who live peacefully within territorial boundaries and commit no crimes are entitled to the same legal protections as any other residents. Miss Redfeather has broken no laws, yet the harassment she's faced could be grounds for legal action against this community. This revelation shocked the crowd. Mayor Johnson's face went pale at the political and legal implications, but Martha's most powerful weapon was truth. She had been preparing for this moment, gathering evidence of Ayanna's secret kindnesses. I want to tell you about something that happened last week, Martha announced, her voice carrying across the now silent square. Little Tommy Murphy fell into Miller's Creek while playing near the water. The current was strong from recent rains, and Tommy couldn't swim. Most of you heard he was saved by a mysterious stranger who disappeared before anyone could thank them. The crowd leaned in, curious despite their hostility. Several people nodded, remembering the incident. I was walking near the creek that evening, taking my usual constitutional before dinner. I saw the whole thing happen. I saw Tommy fall in, heard his screams, watched him being swept away by the current, and I saw who jumped into that dangerous water to save him. Martha paused dramatically. It was Ayanna Redfeather. Without a moment's hesitation, without any thought for her own safety, she plunged into that raging creek and fought the current to reach Tommy. She managed to grab him and push him toward the bank, where I was able to help pull him to safety. Then, while I was checking on Tommy and calling for help, she slipped away into the woods. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. This revelation was completely unexpected. Why didn't she stay? Asked Dr. Foster. Why didn't she wait for his parents to thank her? Martha's smile was sad but knowing, because she knew exactly what would happen if people discovered that the savage Apache woman had touched one of our children. She knew that instead of gratitude, she would face suspicion and accusations. She knew her act of heroism would be twisted into something sinister by people who had already decided she was their enemy. Gladys Murphy stood frozen in shock, her face pale. She saved my boy? The Apache woman saved Tommy's life? She risked her own life to save your son, Martha confirmed, and she asked for nothing in return. She didn't even want recognition. She simply did what was right because it needed to be done. Gladys began to cry, her hands covering her face as shame overwhelmed her. Oh God, what have we done? What have I done? Martha continued, revealing Ayanna's hidden generosity. She's been leaving food for the Henderson family's elderly dog when she thought no one was looking. She's been quietly repairing damage to the church fence during the night. She's been gathering medicinal herbs from the desert and leaving them outside Dr. Foster's office for patients who can't afford proper medicine. Dr. Foster stepped forward, his medical bag clutched tightly, his face showing moral awakening. "Mrs. Henderson, are you saying that the medicinal herbs I've been finding outside my office, the ones that have helped me treat patients when my supplies ran low, those came from Miss Redfeather?" She told Father Miguel that she had learned about healing plants from her grandmother and that she wanted to help sick people even if they wouldn't accept help directly from her hands. She's been studying which patients visit your office most frequently, learning about their ailments and providing remedies to ease their suffering. The doctor's face went through surprise, shame, and finally deep sadness. "Those herbs were of exceptional quality. I've been wondering where they came from, grateful for their appearance when I needed them most. I never imagined my mysterious benefactor was someone I'd spent months trying to drive away." The crowd was fracturing dramatically. Some people were clearly moved by these revelations, their hostility giving way to shame and confusion. Others seemed determined to maintain their prejudices despite evidence of Ayana's character. "She's shown more Christian character than most of us can claim," Martha declared, her voice carrying conviction that penetrated even the hardest hearts. One by one, townspeople began confessing their cruelties. Elizabeth Warren, whose husband had died in an Apache raid 3 years earlier, whispered through tears, "I threw stones at her. When she tried to help me with packages that day in the store, I called her terrible names and threw stones at her feet like she was a stray dog." Patrick Murphy cleared his throat roughly. "She saved our boy's life, and we taught Tommy to fear and hate people like the woman who risked everything to save him." More confessions followed, deliberately overcharging Ayana for supplies, spreading malicious rumors, encouraging children to mock and torment her. A dozen small cruelties that had made her life a daily ordeal. Father Miguel finally found his courage. "I have failed in my pastoral duty by not speaking out against injustice when I witnessed it. I have allowed my desire for community harmony to override my obligation to defend the vulnerable and protect the innocent." He looked directly at the crowd. "I propose that we invite Miss Redfeather to join us for Sunday service this week, not as an object of charity or curiosity, but as a welcome member of our community who deserves the same respect we would offer any other peaceful resident." Martha's 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, had slipped out and made her way to the square. She tugged on her mother's skirt and called out loudly, "Mama, can we invite Miss Ayana to our house for dinner? I want to learn how to make braids like yours, and maybe she could teach me some of her stories." The child's innocent enthusiasm provided stark contrast to the adult fear and prejudice. Sarah's simple desire to befriend Ayana highlighted how much of the community's hostility was learned behavior rather than natural human instinct. Several women gasped at the suggestion of a white child wearing Apache braids, but Martha knelt beside her daughter, speaking loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "I think that's a wonderful idea, sweetheart. Would you like to come with me when I go to apologize to Miss Ayana?" "Yes," Sarah exclaimed, clapping her hands. "I want to tell her that I think her hair is beautiful and that I'm sorry people were mean to her." Martha announced she was going to find Ayana and apologize on behalf of the community. "I'm going to walk over to the trading post now. I'm going to find Ayana Redfeather, apologize for my community's treatment of her, and invite her to join us as a full and welcomed member of Silver Creek. Anyone who would like to join me in extending that invitation is welcome to come along." Dr. Foster stepped forward first. "Mrs. Henderson, I would be honored to accompany you. I have much to apologize for and much to learn." Father Miguel joined them next. "Miss Redfeather has shown more Christian charity than most of us can claim. It's time we returned that generosity." One by one, others began to follow. Elizabeth Warren wiped her tears and stepped forward with her infant son. Patrick and Gladys Murphy joined the growing procession, their faces showing shame and determination. James Patterson walked alongside them, his legal training having given him courage to stand for justice. Soon, nearly half the crowd was following Martha toward the trading post, while the other half remained in the square, watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to disapproval. Silver Creek was literally dividing itself, with some residents choosing to embrace change, while others clung to familiar prejudices. As they approached the trading post, Martha could see Ayana standing in the shadows between buildings, her dark eyes wide with surprise and uncertainty. The Apache woman had witnessed the entire confrontation, heard every word of Martha's passionate defense, but seemed unable to believe this procession of townspeople was actually approaching her with peaceful intentions. Martha stopped a respectful distance away, not wanting to crowd or intimidate her. "Miss Redfeather, my name is Martha Henderson. I believe you know who I am, and I hope you've heard at least some of what I said in the square this morning." Ayana nodded slowly, her expression cautious but no longer fearful. "I have come to apologize," Martha continued, "not just for my own failure to welcome you to our community, but for the shameful way our entire town has treated you. We have judged you without knowing you, feared you without cause, and caused you pain that no person should have to endure." Ayana's composure cracked slightly, tears filling her eyes that she quickly blinked away. "You don't need to apologize for others. Each person is responsible for their own choices, their own actions. But I appreciate your kindness more than you can know. I'm not just apologizing, Miss Redfeather. I'm asking for your forgiveness, and I'm inviting you to become a full and welcome member of our community. We need your wisdom, your kindness, your strength. We need the lessons you can teach us about dignity, about perseverance, about maintaining principles in the face of adversity." Dr. Foster stepped forward. "Miss Redfeather, I owe you particular gratitude for the medicinal herbs you've been providing. They've helped me treat patients who couldn't afford proper medicine. Your generosity saved lives, and I repaid it with coldness and suspicion. I hope you can forgive me." Father Miguel joined the apologies. "I have observed your conduct for months, and I have seen more genuine Christian charity in your actions than in many who claim to follow Christ. I would be honored if you would join us for worship this Sunday, not as a visitor, but as a valued member of our congregation." One by one, others stepped forward with apologies and invitations. Elizabeth Warren spoke through tears about her shame at blaming Ayana for her husband's death. Patrick Murphy thanked her for saving Tommy's life and invited her to visit their saloon. Even children who had accompanied their parents approached with shy apologies and offers of friendship. Through it all, Ayana maintained her composure, accepting each apology with grace and dignity. But Martha could see the profound impact these words were having. The way her carefully constructed emotional defenses were beginning to crumble under the unexpected assault of kindness and acceptance. Finally, Martha stepped forward once more. "Miss Redfeather, I have one more request. I would like you to teach me about your braids. I tried to copy the style I saw you wearing, but I know I got many details wrong. I would be honored if you would show me the proper way to create these beautiful patterns and perhaps explain some of their significance." This request was perhaps most meaningful of all. Martha was asking to be taught, to be instructed by someone the community had dismissed as ignorant and uncivilized. She was publicly acknowledging that Ayana possessed knowledge and skills that had value, that white society could learn from Apache culture. "I would be honored to teach you," Ayana replied, her voice carrying warmth that had been absent for months. "These braids do carry meaning, and I would be pleased to share some of their stories with someone who appreciates their beauty." As the morning progressed and initial shock began wearing off, practical implications of this transformation started becoming apparent. Ayana would need proper housing rather than the church storage room. She would need integration into the community's economic life, her skills properly valued and compensated. Most importantly, the attitudes that had led to her rejection would need active dismantling and replacement with genuine respect. Martha understood her morning's work was just the beginning of a longer process. Wearing Apache braids for one day was powerful symbolism, but creating lasting transformation would require sustained effort from many people over many months. But as she watched Ayana begin explaining the intricate patterns of her traditional hairstyle to the group of women who had gathered around them, Martha felt deep hope and satisfaction. She had taken a stand for justice and human dignity, changing not only Ayana's life, but beginning her entire community's transformation. The dusty streets of Silver Creek had witnessed something unprecedented that Tuesday morning in 1887. The power of moral courage to challenge injustice, the ability of one person's stand to change many hearts, and the possibility of building bridges across the deepest cultural divides. Most importantly, they had seen that true strength lay not in rejecting those different from them, but in having wisdom and humility to learn from them. As the Arizona sun reached its peak and morning drama gave way to practical work of healing and reconciliation, Martha Henderson continued wearing her Apache braids with pride. But now she wore them not as defiance, but as a symbol of unity, understanding, and the unshakable belief that all human beings deserve dignity, respect, and the chance to be judged by character rather than appearance.